Good morning, tea sippers, and welcome to an episode of Lovely News Network. We are here to talk about a lot of things that's going on right now with the food supply chain. So if you guys remember on the Discord, because we've been talking about this now for a few weeks, there's a lot going on, and it's starting to make my tin hat tingle. So the other day I took the Discord and I said, don't y'all find it strange that our food processing centers have been under heavy attack lately? Because there was a video going around Instagram at the time, and it's just showing all of these different processing centers that process our food here in America blowing up, having explosions, planes landing in them. I mean, it's been crazy. So now the other day I went to the grocery store and I was really upset, and I posted this picture and I said, hey everyone, I just want to scream right now. Why the hell are they selling one avocado for damn near $4? Now I'm about to drive around and find somewhere cheaper. Shake my head. This is crazy. It was 2 for $5 last week, hence why I came here. I still remember when avocados cost less than 75 cents. Shake my head. So we had a really interesting discussion that day about avocados. You know, Ngozi, you know what I'm saying, was trying to be a bad influence and get me to use my 5-finger discount. I said, girl, I can't get caught stealing a damn avocado. So she posted this GIF and she had everybody cracking up. So now I did not do the 5-finger discount on the avocado. I politely put it down and I walked out the store and I took my ass up the street to Aldi's, where they actually had avocados for 99 cents. So I ended up getting 4 of them. So that's how I did that in Ngozi. I went to Aldi's. But it's sad because I've never had to do that. I've never had to drive around to go find a cheaper price, you know, for something like avocados. But in a lot of main grocery stores, we are seeing the price of things go up. And you guys know I'm on my diet. I've been eating healthy, been working out 5 days a week. So, you know, those are good fats, avocados. So, you know, I enjoy avocado. So for that to be almost $4, I'm not going to pay $4 for an avocado. You know, chicken used to cost $4. Beef used to cost $4. Now you go for a pack of chicken wings, you're looking at like $20. You go for beef, you know, $10, $15 for like a steak. So it's getting crazy out here. The price of everything is definitely going up. So I decided to do my own research to find out, you know, is this just a conspiracy? Is this just a bunch of people online fear-mongering? And from what I'm researching, this is real, okay? A lot of our food processing sites are being affected. So on top of the war in Ukraine, which we've talked about for months now, being the breadbasket of the world, so a lot of us are seeing an increase in wheat and bread prices. A lot of other countries like in Africa and Europe that depend on Ukraine for their bread, they're seeing a shortage of bread. You know what I'm saying? Remember, that is what started the Arab Spring, was because of bread not being able to be delivered to the people in Egypt. So it's very unnerving what is going on with the food supply, because at the end of the day, that is something that we all need to survive. You have to have food, you have to have water. So it's very disturbing when I'm seeing all of these processing plants get attacked, especially being that in 2020, remember, all of the farmers had to destroy their crops. So I'm going to go ahead and play you guys a series of clips that I've collected of just what's going on with the food processing that some of you guys may not be aware of. So y'all go ahead and check this out.
5 million pounds of green beans that we have destroyed. 8 million pounds of cabbage that we've destroyed. We have to grind it up back into the ground. That's the only choice we have, and hope for a better day.
Paul Allen isn't alone. Farmers across the country are destroying millions of pounds of fresh produce as the coronavirus has majorly disrupted the food supply chain. Initially, consumers hoarded items like rice, beans, and frozen foods.
Supply and demand in an overall sense is exactly the same. The challenge is how we're getting that food, where we're getting that food, and in some cases, what types of food we're getting.
Basically, farmers are up against an inflexible food supply chain, which is specialized for the end customer. Long-standing contracts between farmers, restaurants, schools, and grocery stores determine how the crops will be packaged and processed. So it's just not easy to divert all the produce intended for restaurants to grocery stores instead.
You're really designing your farm to fit whatever specific sales outlet you have. The system just isn't set up to be that nimble.
A quarter of all food consumed and over half of all food dollars go to the food service sector. So many operations are designed specifically with restaurants in mind.
Most of the volume sizes per unit are larger, where you might get a 12-ounce bag of veggies in a supermarket. Most of the food service stuff is like in 10-pound bags.
And it's not easy to switch those factories, the packaging in those factories, from restaurant or commercial to consumer.
Rodney Braga, president and CEO of Braga Fresh Family Farms in California's Salinas Valley, has been able to send a greater share of his produce to grocery stores. But he says the distribution centers are facing a bottleneck and just can't handle more food right now.
They're not set up to run at 200%. They're set up to run efficiently at 100%. So they're maxed out now at 130, 140% of normal. So they're at that crunch point.
And when it comes to perishables, like the lettuce grown at Braga Fresh, it's not possible to store it until distribution centers have capacity or until the economy opens back up.
It's either harvested and sold and consumed, or it's done away with, because the shelf life is, 2 weeks max.
Aircraft down, General Mills parking lot. Plane is on fire and occupied.
You just heard that call for help from a 911 dispatcher after a plane crashed near the General Mills plant in Newton County. And officials tell 11 Alive just a couple of hours ago there are no survivors.
That plane went down just after dinner time. Joe Ripley has been on the ground following this breaking news all night long. Joe, what's the scene looking like right now?
Well, it's still quiet right now. The latest update I can tell you, though, from Covington Police, Captain Ken Malcolm tells me he believes at least 2 people were on board that plane. They did not survive. Where we're standing now, we're standing about 100 yards outside of the General Mills cereal plant here in Covington, 100 yards away from where this plane went down. We understand this plant employs several hundred people, and several were here working at the time. Police say they don't believe anyone on board the plane survived, but they say the situation could have been a lot worse. A call coming in around 6:45 tonight. Police saying a Cessna 340 twin-engine plane was traveling from around a local airport. Witnesses reporting the plane had veered sharply and crashed onto the side of the General Mills cereal plant here off Industrial Park Boulevard. You can see here from viewer-submitted pictures and video the heavy smoke that came once that plane, we understand, exploded on impact when it had crashed. You can see that it also damaged several trailers here on the site of the cereal plant, but that's the good news. No one here on the ground hurt. Viewer pictures you saw there. FAA now on scene trying to piece together how this all happened, what factors may have contributed to this plane crash. They call it a horrible situation, what happened here tonight, but they say no one on the ground got hurt, and for that they are grateful, but certainly some families here will be grieving over the loss of at least 2 people at this point. We understand federal investigators will also be back here in the morning to continue their investigation.
Top story is, of course, the Taylor Farms processing facility in Salinas, which burned overnight. It is now considered a total loss after that monster fire ripped through the building last night. Here is a live look from Skycam 8 Salinas from our KSPW 8 studios right now. This is looking toward the Taylor Farms facility on Abbott Street. And you can see there still is a little bit of smoke that is still coming from the facility. Crews are on scene monitoring the situation as we speak. And new tonight, these photos taken from a drone showing just how major this fire was. These pictures coming to us from the city of Salinas. Fire started around 7 last night during some maintenance at the facility. No injuries were reported. That is the very good news. And the cause is still under investigation tonight. All evacuation and shelter-in-place orders have been lifted in Salinas, so have all school closures. Officials have secured all hazardous materials, and they continue to keep a very close eye on this scene.
For this fire, at least in my tenure in Salinas, this one definitely had the potential to do a lot of damage, as we talked about, from the explosive threat. This is one that's will stick in my memory for a while.
So again, the building a complete loss for Taylor Farms. CEO and founder Bruce Taylor released a statement to KSPW 8 this afternoon saying in part, quote, "We are extremely grateful to all the local first responders for helping ensure the safety of all personnel on site at the facility and those in the surrounding area. The Abbott Street location was our first home in California. Again, some firefighters remaining on scene and are likely to remain there for at least the next couple of days. Action News 8 reporter Felix Cortez is also there, and he's live now with the very latest for us. Felix?
Well, Aaron, the biggest development today is that firefighters were able to zero in on the cause of this fire beginning at daybreak today. And they believe that fire started as a result of some maintenance that was being done. As you mentioned, that maintenance involved some welding work, and firefighters were able to zero in and make the connection that welding was being done at the same place where they believe this fire started. And all this happening, as you can maybe barely see just over my left shoulder, that this fire continues to smolder at this point. A fire that firefighters say completely gutted the inside of this building here at the Taylor Farms facility. Give you a sense of the size of this building. It's roughly 150,000 square feet, about the size of a large Home Depot. All that's standing are the exterior walls. Now, firefighters describing it as one of the largest fires they've had to battle in their careers. More than 100 firefighters at one point on scene fighting this 4-alarm fire. And of course, the biggest concern for firefighters, ammonia, 35,000 gallons of the highly volatile product that at one point forced firefighters to pull back and leading to evacuations and a shelter-in-place order.
That could have been devastating to this community. We're talking big explosions with major damage throughout the community, not just Taylor Farms.
Out of an abundance of caution, we put these evacuation and the shelter-in-place advisories in effect.
Now, firefighters again today saying they believe it was some workers doing maintenance work that involved welding, which sparked this fire at a Taylor's Farm processing and coaling plant on South Abbott over here in Salinas. Firefighters say all hazardous materials here at this plant have been secured, and late this afternoon, firefighters switched to a mop-up operation. They are doing mop-ups, but they are still here on scene closely monitoring this fire to make sure there are no flare-ups. But this building behind
Breaking news in eastern Oregon, where crews are battling a major fire at a potato chip processing plant. Air 12 flew over the scene at Shearer's Foods on Highway 207 in Hermiston. We're told the fire was caused by an explosion of a portable boiler there. 2 people were taken to the hospital. It's unclear how badly they were hurt. There are no evacuation orders in place, but people have been told to be ready to evacuate due to air quality issues as a result of all that smoke. We invite you to stay with Fox 12 and KPTV.com for updates on this breaking news.
There's some breaking news we want to tell you about. It's happening right now in Piscataway, Middlesex County. And wow, there you have it. That is a rather substantial fire. It's happening in what looks like a factory. Let's get more details from Shannon Sohn in Newscopter 7. Shannon.
Yeah, this is burning at the PepsiCo facility here on New Brunswick Avenue at Lakeview Avenue. Now, initial reports are just starting to come in that there may be propane tanks that exploded here, but you can see whatever started this fire, it looks like it started in some of the containers located outside of the building, and it has quickly spread to the building. You can see the Pepsi trucks on the left side of your picture, but what we really want to do here is bring this picture out because this fire started less than 20 minutes ago, and we were as far as 30 miles away, and you can see the smoke and even the flames into the air. You can see here off of Lakeview Avenue that the fire department is just starting to respond to this. They don't even have any water on it yet. So right
now, this is the second time in a week that something like this has happened. On April 14th, the plane crashed into the Gem State Processing in East Idaho. What's going on here? Well, the story gets weirder. Food processing plants all over the country seem to be catching fire. A couple of days ago, a fire destroyed the headquarters of Azure Standard, one of the largest organic food distributors in the country. At the end of last month, a fire severely damaged a fresh onion packing facility in South Texas. In Oregon, a potato chip processing plant just reported a boiler explosion that sent workers to the hospital. Here's a news report on that.
Eastern Oregon, where crews are battling a major fire at a potato chip processing plant. Air 12 flew over the scene at Shearer's Foods on Highway 207 in Hermiston. We're told the fire was caused by an explosion of a portable boiler there. 2 people were taken to the hospital.
So industrial accidents happen, of course, but this is a lot of industrial accidents at food processing facilities at the same time the president's warning us about food shortages. They're getting hit by planes and catching fire. What is going on here exactly? Jason Rantz hosts a radio show in Seattle and joins us to put it into perspective. Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, obviously, when something happens every so often, you obviously hope that there's no significant damage and certainly no one gets hurt, but you kind of write it off. It's not that big of a deal. Accidents happen. But when you've got well over a dozen food processing plants and warehouses getting destroyed or seriously damaged over just the last few weeks at a time when the food supply is already vulnerable, it's obviously suspicious, and it could lead to serious food shortages. That's why some folks are now wondering, well, number one, what's going on? And you've got some people speculating that this might be an intentional way to disrupt the food supply.
Wait, may I ask you to pause there really quick? Can I just ask you, I just want to nail this down so our viewers understand. There have been confirmed over a dozen disabling accidents at food plants in the last month, over a dozen.
Absolutely, and we're talking about some really significant plants. The Taylor Farms facility in Salinas, California was completely destroyed by a fire last week. We've had 2 major potato processing plants in Belfast, Maine and Warden, Washington that were completely gutted.
All right, so you guys just saw those disturbing clips. Now, let me take y'all back to 2020, when a lot of farmers were forced to destroy their crops. And the reason why they were forced to do that is because the supply chain was cut. Restaurants were shut down. Schools were shut down. Schools are the main buyers of milk. And I live in the Midwest, so dairy farming is very big out here, milk and cheese. And a lot of dairy farmers had to pour out their milk in Wisconsin and in Minnesota.
Some store shelves empty of milk, yet we've seen video of farmers dumping it. We set out to find out why. With Wisconsin already bleeding dairy farms, bad just became worse. Facebook photos of Wisconsin milk being dumped in manure pits or flushed down the drain. But how could it be when some dairy cases in the Twin Cities are empty?
Nobody wants to dump milk.
Marty Halleck milks cows near Mondovi, Wisconsin, and serves on the board of the Ellsworth Cooperative Creamery.
Probably the biggest challenge is how rapidly this change came.
Almost instantly, demand shifted from cheese, primarily sold in now shuttered restaurants, to bottled milk being guzzled in stay-at-home households. A Wisconsin dairy disaster.
In the state of Wisconsin, about 90% of the milk is made into cheese, 10% is fluid.
Cheese plants, like Ellsworth, aren't set up to bottle milk. And bottling plants, like this one run by Kemp's in Minneapolis, only have capacity to bottle so much.
Somewhere there's a line that made them little butter patties that's sitting empty right now.
Because they went to restaurants.
They went to restaurants.
Ellsworth Creamery, the Minnesota State Fair supplier of curds, is working overtime turning milk into stored cheese. Still, it sent out this letter urging its farmers to cut production through cow sales and feeding changes and offering financial incentives to dairymen who quit. All meant to stave off milk dumping.
It's heartbreaking. It really causes mental stress on a group of people that already had a lot of mental stress.
And people were really upset. Like, sell that to the consumers. We'll come and buy it directly from the farmers. But then the government's like, no, it might not be safe. We don't want, people running to these farms. There were all these rules and regulations. In Cali, where they grow a lot of fruits and vegetables, a lot of those farmers had to destroy them. There were literally pounds of rotting potatoes near the sides of roads that could have been sold to people. Farmers had to go in and destroy their cabbages, their onions. It was really heartbreaking to watch this because we know people are starving. We know people are hurting for money. Food banks are begging for this supply, and this food rots within 2 weeks. So that's another thing. They had to get the food out to these places as soon as possible, and now with the gas prices going up, it's hard to just, divert and ship things where you need them shipped. So this has all been a big trickle-down effect. And it's really sad because, again, it all started back in 2020. And it's very frustrating. And like one of the farmers was saying, they can't just change how their farms operate. If their farms are set to grow certain things for restaurants or schools, they can't then just divert that to make it where they go to grocery stores, because those grocery stores already have contracts with certain farms that just specifically make things for grocery stores. So the whole farming industry goes so deep, you know, and it's really sad because so many farmers are affected by this. You know, they want to grow food. They want to feed people. That's why people become farmers, you know. So to be able to grow all these crops and not be able to put it on people's dinner plates or take it to restaurants, it's heartbreaking for them as well. And the fact that the people in the communities weren't allowed to go and just buy them directly from the farmers, to me, just does not make any sense. So now let's leave 2020 and come to 2022. So now we're seeing an increase of all of these, you know, so-called accidents. All of these plants burning down, catching on fire, and it's really scary. Now, remember, Joe Biden, he said back on March 24th that we're going to be having food shortages, and it's going to be real.
Nothing more to report. With regard to food shortages, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well.
I mean, he stuttered to get through it, but, you know, that's what I got from his mumbling and bumbling, is that there are real food shortages. And I have been talking about this for the past 2 years, okay, that this is what's coming down the pipeline. Now, so we're already dealing with food shortages. We're dealing with the farmers who had to destroy their crops in 2020. Now we have the people who are processing our foods being attacked. I do not find this coincidental. I find this extremely scary and unnerving. In February of this year, Shearer Food Processing Plant in Hermiston, Oregon burnt down, leaving 2 employees injured. On April 13th, Taylor Farms Food Processing Plant in Salinas, California, burnt down in plumes of smoke, and people were prompted to evacuate. And then on April 19th, the headquarters of Azure Standard Food Processing Plant in Dufar, Oregon, also burnt, leaving 1 building a total loss. So now people are really wondering what is going on, that all of these places in different states, these people process a lot of food items. The Azure food plant, they are deemed as the nation's premier distributor of organic and healthy foods. So that was a really big plant, and, you know, they had a total loss in one of their buildings. And so they produce organic and healthy stuff, and even they're being attacked. And so a lot of the things that were ruined in that fire were things like avocados, oranges, you know, just a lot of the fresh vegetables and fruits that are grown out there. Right now, if you guys do not know, avocados have surged to a 24-year high.
A warning to all those millennials subsisting on avocado toast. Supply constraints are spiking the price of avocados. We take a look by the numbers. Bloomberg reports that avocado prices have surged to their highest in 24 years amid tightening supplies in Mexico, the world's biggest exporter. According to Bloomberg, costs are up about 81% this year on avocados from the Mexican state of Michoacan, the main source in the country, to about $38 for a 9-kilo box. And Mexican output is expected to drop about 8% for the current crop year, according to the USDA, following a temporary ban on avocado shipments in February after threats against U.S. inspectors in Mexico. That's created a supply backlog as Mexico accounts for more than 80% of the avocados eaten in the U.S., with supply from California unable to fill the demand. Combined with already high inflation, the biggest U.S. avocado distributor said this month it's seen a 50% increase in the average avocado sales price, and that means the price of your guacamole is likely going up. And in case you did not know, avocados are a fruit, not a vegetable, and they're actually considered a single-seeded berry.
Avocados have never been this expensive ever in life. And I believe it's a mixture of all the stuff that went on in 2020, the supply chain disruption, but also what's going on with these processing plants as well. So it's causing a shortage in food, it's causing a shortage in production, and it's causing a shortage in what can get out to the grocery stores, what can get out to restaurants. So this is really frightening, and I want people to be aware of what's going on, that it's bigger than just a gas issue, paying more at the pump, and so that's causing the price of food to rise. But there's also a really menacing, sinister issue where these food processing plants seem to be under attack. Now, another thing that's really frightening, if you guys don't know, I heard about this way back at the beginning of March, when the war in Ukraine happened and, Russia invaded, it also caused the fertilizer prices to basically skyrocket, okay? If people don't understand that this part of the world is literally affecting the entire world, not only is it the breadbasket of Europe, okay, and Africa, let's keep that real, a lot of African nations get their bread from Ukraine, but Russia is also one of the major exporters of potash ammonia, urea, and other soil nutrients. And these are the nutrients that we need to make fertilizer that helps our crops. Okay, so we buy a lot of that stuff from Russia. That's why I find it very funny how people act like they don't have any dealings with Russia, when if you look at a lot of stuff, we do buy and deal with Russia. It's not just oil. We definitely import a good amount of fertilizer from Russia as well. Fertilizer is the key to keeping corn, soy, rice, and wheat at higher yields. So right now, growers and farmers, they are scrambling to find fertilizer, okay? Fertilizer has gone up really high since March.
Tony, it's good to have you here. How bad is the global shortage of fertilizer right now?
Sarah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. It is a huge problem. The globe is very tight fertilizer. It's a confluence of factors, unprecedented demand coupled with a huge fall off in supply availability, only just exacerbated by the war in Ukraine and what's going on with exports coming out of Russia and Ukraine. So we are
What are
really
you doing about it? How do you ramp up to help meet that demand?
So nitrogen production is very much large refineries, chemical plants. We run those plants 24/7, 365. There are very few incremental tons that we can make. We have pushed out some maintenance activities. We have added some logistics capabilities, some vessels and rail cars, but there's no new tons to make. It's just a matter of trying to get them as quickly as we can into the marketplace.
It's harvest season in the soybean field in southern Brazil. Analysts warn higher prices means less production of essential crops. Farmers are also struggling in Kenya. Up until recently, fertilizing this entire...
With the price hike, it's going to cost about $875 to cover the farm. I can't continue with this business. I'm quitting because the losses are too high.
Developing countries have been hit particularly hard by the shortage.
The number of people facing food insecurity has increased over the last year, especially after the pandemic. This comes at a bad time and just ends up exacerbating our food challenges globally.
In this street market in Athens, the effects of the war are already hurting both suppliers and consumers.
I would pay about $20 to $24 for a unit of fertilizer, but now the price is about $41, and I'm talking about fertilizers that are essential for us.
Food prices were soaring before the war. The UN says its World Food Price Index reached the highest level last month since it started keeping records in 1990. The fighting in Ukraine is intensifying the problem, putting at risk future harvests.
Fertilizer prices have gone up significantly since this war started, okay? The last time we saw fertilizer prices this high was in 2005. Now, what's really unnerving about the whole fertilizer situation is that recently this year, there have been not one but 3 major plants that carry fertilizer that we need to grow our crops. They have blown up in explosions, okay? So the first fire was February 2nd, and this explosion was in North Carolina. It was a North Carolina fertilizer plant, and it literally burnt for 3 days straight. This happened in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And this is what they say. An uncontrollable fire at a fertilizer plant in North Carolina continued to burn Wednesday, forcing firefighters and thousands of evacuated residents to remain at least 1.6 kilometers away because it could be a large explosion. So that happened in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, around February 2nd, 2022, okay? So 22222. Now, the next one took place March 2nd, 2022. So literally a month to the day of the first one. Remember, they work in numbers. Literally a month after the first fertilizer explosion, there was one that took place in Sunnyside, Washington. So So this one says, some homes and businesses near the Nutrien Ag Solutions fertilizer plant in Sunnyside, Washington, were evacuated Monday after a fire ignited and burnt through 1.7 million pounds of sulfur. Crews arrived on the scene around 1 p.m. The city of Sunnyside said in a Facebook post on Monday that an area near the plant was evacuated. Another message instructed the entire community to shelter in place with their doors and windows shut and air conditioners and heating systems off. So that is how poisonous these fumes are. So that took place March 2nd, once again, 2022. Now, the most recent one took place just last week. This was April 19th, 2022, and this was in western Kansas. So this is what they're saying. In Lovelyti, Kansas, a fire in a fertilizer company prompted evacuations Tuesday afternoon because of hazardous materials involved in the fire. Now, what's interesting with this is the same exact plant name as the other one in Sunnyside, Washington. So this plant, though, that burnt down in western Kansas was also called Nutrien Ag Solutions plant, but this was the one in Lovelyti, Kansas. So I find it very strange that both these plants that are ran by both these companies ended up having a fire. Now, the fire in Kansas began around 1:30 p.m. The fire in Washington began around 1 p.m. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm reaching. My tin hat is definitely tingling, honey, okay? Something is not right with all this stuff. I feel like they're forcing a food crisis. They're forcing everything to go up in price. It's going to affect a lot of people, especially if you live below the poverty line. So it's very scary. So like I've been saying from day one, continue stacking up, continue preparing. If you cannot afford food at the grocery store, because I understand some people are like, well, I don't have the money to, to hoard a bunch of food or to, stock up. Go to your local food shelves. Go to your local pantries. A lot of churches have pantries, so you can definitely go to food pantries and get needed items and store them, because the price of things are going up. It's going to be harder and harder, for crops to be grown if these fertilizer plants keep catching on fire. Also, this is a perfect time to try and start your own garden, grow your own vegetables. Just know that the cost of fertilizer has definitely gone up. So you may want to start investing in fertilizer now if you're trying to start a garden. So it's a lot of stuff going on out here, but I wanted to make my tea sippers aware. So thank you guys for taking time out to listen to this podcast. Hope you guys have a good day. And once again, thank you for tuning in to Lovely News Network. Talk to y'all later. Deuces. Thank you for listening to today's show. Make sure you join us again soon. For all the latest tea, make sure you follow me on my social media pages. Just put in Lovelyti on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.